Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning. Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Asani Kayatano.
And thank you for joining us this morning. All right, so it's finally a dry morning, but it doesn't look like it's going to stay that way all day.
Well, I don't know what to expect at this point, other than more rains, but the weather report shall give us that information.
That's right. We have Ronald Gordon on the line. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing okay, thank you.
All right. I'm sure it's been a very busy weekend, of course.
Yes, it has.
All right, Ronald, let's just start off. Before we get into today's weather, let's start talking about what happened over the weekend. There was a substantial amount of rainfall. What parts of the country were affected?
Okay, we had a tropical wave crossing us over the weekend, on Saturday especially. And as you rightly mentioned, it dumped a lot of rainfall, especially over the northern and coastal and offshore areas of the country. We saw upwards of 5 inches of rainfall in the Belize area northward along the coast. And in San Pedro in particular, our automatic weather station out there is indicating that they had about over 7.4 inches of rainfall falling on Saturday. Those rainfall decreased on Sunday with less than 1 inch over most areas, but except in the extreme Kaya district, western Kaya district, where we had about 1 to 1.5 inches of rainfall still on Sunday.
All right. And, yesterday we finally saw just a glimpse of the sun. What does this mean for weather moving forward?
Yes, as you rightly mentioned, things are starting to improve. Like you said, it improved yesterday, and we expect further improvements tonight. For today in particular, though, we still have relatively moist and unstable conditions continuing. And that will support mostly cloudy skies for today. We expect a few showers, periods of rain, and isolated thunderstorms to affect mainly coastal, offshore, and southern areas today. Tonight, as I mentioned, things will improve. Skies will become partly cloudy, with showers and thunderstorms decreasing and becoming isolated.
All right. And the winds?
Winds are out of the north and northeast at 5 to 15 knots. Sea conditions are light chop.
Okay, let's talk a bit about our temperatures. What are those going to be for today?
We still expect relatively cool temperatures, highs of about 82 along the coast, 86 inland, and 72 up in the hills. And their lows for tonight, that's 74 along the coast, 70 inland, and 65 in the mountains.
Okay. Now, the flood warnings that are in effect, let's talk about that. We've gotten so many images from across the country with the north being affected by flooding, central Belize being affected by flooding. Tell us what the situation is.
Yes, the situation is that we still have the flood warning. That will continue at least for the next several days, even when the rains hold up, as you would expect, with the flows, the rivers flowing downstream towards the coast. We'll expect flooding to continue, especially over the. We have a warning, especially for the Belize River Valley area and downstream areas towards the coast, because of that particular aspect, no? And in general, we do have a flood warning across the country because we have soils that are super saturated. We had tremendous amount of rainfall so far for November. So any additional rainfall, even if it's not an inch, could create flooding due to the fact that soils are saturated as they are.
You know, you pointed out that November has been incredibly rainy. I know with Eta alone, some places got almost 2 feet of water. Would this be the highest on our record so far for this month?
We haven't really looked at the extremes as yet. We will tabulate those data, but I would venture to say if it's not the highest, it's probably one of the highest so far.
And the flood waters that we saw with Eta, those are still making its way down? That's part of the contributing to the flooding?
Yes, indeed. We still have flood waters from Eta coming down, especially over the extreme eastern portions of the Belize River. even the Ladyville area, right now back in our yard here at the mid-service, we still have a tremendous amount of water from the river. So those are actually water from Eta indeed, and to compound the situation, the added rainfall from Iota have added to that also. So it's a combination of both at the moment.
Okay. And then, of course, the tropical wave from the weekend. But you said it's going to be improving in the few days ahead?
Yes, looking ahead for today, like we said, we still expect a few showers lingering around with some moisture. By tonight, that should decrease and become isolated. Tomorrow, Tuesday, is going to be one of the best days we've seen in a long time. Generally fair conditions with showers and thunderstorms isolated. And that will continue for Wednesday. And it seems as though on Wednesday night into Thursday, we have another system approaching us which will dump some more rainfall, especially into Thursday night. I'm seeing rainfall peaking Thursday night with maximum of about 2 to 4 inches of rainfall again. So
that's another tropical wave that will be passing.
Yes, it seems another wave will be coming our way.
Okay, and that's another. Is it going to stay over our area for long, or?
It doesn't appear so. Like I said, it will be about a 24 to 48-hour period of rain. It will start on Wednesday night and then decrease by Friday night. So 24 to 48 hours type of rainfall.
Wow. Well, I guess the silver lining in all of this is our tropical weather outlook.
Yes. It's a pleasure to say that in a long time we don't expect any tropical cyclone development within this next 48-hour period. And indeed, that's something I'm happy to see.
Yeah. Well, Ronald, thank you so much for that update. Thank you also for keeping us updated over the weekend. We get the Met Service updates with the rainfall count and how things are going. So thank you to you and your team.
Sure. We are always happy to be here providing this information to the Belizean public.
All right. Take care.
Okay, sure.
There is no letting up in the amount of rainfall we've been receiving in the month of November. Just when I thought it was going to subside on Wednesday, it's picking up with another wave.
Yeah, I know. Even that conversation was a bit of a high and low. It's like,
Yeah.
well, it's better than it was over the weekend. Tomorrow is supposed to be a great day. I know a lot of people need to get some laundry done. That's definitely a day you want to schedule in. But we also have another wave that will make its way over us by the end of the week. And of course, as I said, the silver lining is that there are no hurricane systems in the tropics that we need to be concerned about.
Yeah.
So, all right, but we'll be talking a bit more about the flooding during the course of our show. So we're going to keep things moving this morning with our eye opener. And our eye opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. When we feel stuck, it can be helpful to let go of our resistance to the change that wants to come forth. When we feel stuck in our lives, it's important to take stock of what is going on and find out if there is something we're doing or not doing that is keeping us stuck. Sometimes the situation is out of our control, and we need to look within to find the patience required to wait with equanimity until things move forward again. Many times, though, we can find the source of our stagnation in our own hearts and minds. Sometimes we're clinging to old ideas about reality, and we need to make adjustments that will bring us back in tune with life so we can flow again. Sometimes we find that fear of change is what's keeping us stuck, and we can resolve to find ways of facing that fear. In all this, be kind to yourself and remember that we all get stuck sometimes. Think of it as a part of your process, a necessary step on your journey, rather than as a problem that shouldn't be happening. This can help to keep your frustration at bay and give you the space you need to take a deep breath and really figure out what's going on.
So we all face obstacles in our lives, and encountering an obstacle is what makes us get stuck, as the eye-opener points out. But I think that by nature and perhaps by our behavior, we tend to cling and hold on dearly to the way we think and the way we do things, so that when we're stuck and we can't see a way around that obstacle, we hold on to what we know instead of letting go to an extent and allowing things to take course the way they would. And for some reason, Marlene, this eye-opener kind of reminds me of the Serenity Prayer in the sense that, you know, you have to be able to accept the things you can't change, but being able to do so means being able to let go of some of the things that you have held on to that prohibits you from seeing something else or from being able to move forward in your journey. And so to me, that's a comparison I would make between this eye-opener and that famous prayer.
Yeah, yeah. I love that it encourages you to do some self-assessment because it's a terrible feeling when you feel like you're moving nowhere, and you know, especially if you're motivated to want something to be different. I just think sometimes we become too dependent on wanting kind of the universe to fall into place and things will progressively move you forward. But it doesn't really happen like that. I think sometimes we don't realize that we have not put ourselves in the mindset for the trajectory that we want, or we have not perhaps considered whether we're keeping our own selves held captive. And so I love that it kind of brings it back to home. You have to think about why you are where you are. What are the controllable factors, going back to your Serenity Prayer, and what are the uncontrollable factors? And from the controllables, what can I do about it? So I think that, because it's very easy to kind of just stagnate. And you know what happens. You become bitter souls who kind of just stay in the same place and make everybody else's life miserable. We get there sometimes. But the point is that you want to move forward in some way. You want to move, period. And at least know that you do have some control over it.
Well, the eye-opener also points to not necessarily beating up on oneself when you encounter a situation where you don't see a headway. But the truth of the matter is, for most of us, we are our own harshest critic, right? And so when we hit a stumbling block, I don't need you to tell me that I'm stuck. It rests on my mind, and I can't readily let go of the idea that, you know what, perhaps this is happening for a reason, and I simply need to just let go and let be. I beat up myself. I look in the mirror and I say, you know what, you're better than this. You can do way much more than what you're doing, or what have you. And so the eye-opener speaking to that is kind of ironic, because that is a challenge. How do you not be your own harshest critic when all along, if you're driven by any kind of goal or ambition, that is your measure. Your measure, you're competing against yourself, so to speak.
It's true. That's a good point, that in the process you have to be kind to yourself as well. All right, so that's the eye-opener for this morning. We do hope that it's something that will help you in your own journey. And of course, it's Monday, so it's always great to start off on that right foot. Okay, so we got to get moving into our eye on the news segment and find out the big stories that we'll be talking about this week.
So I wanted to start off our conversation this morning by trying to make a juxtaposition between the mortality rate that is tied to the COVID-19 pandemic and, of course, the homicide rate. It's a discussion that I've been trying to spur in the newsroom since last week, and I'm hoping that because we're entering, or we are already in the fourth quarter of the year, we normally do our record keeping to keep a tally of where we are in terms of the numbers of homicides. But the pandemic situation is fairly new to us. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is that when you look at the number of persons thus far who have passed away because of the COVID-19 pandemic, as it stands, we're at 116 persons, with several deaths reported over the weekend, bringing us to a total of 32 over the span of 1 week alone, right? And when we look at the numbers for the end of the year for homicides, we would be in the hundreds or what have you. The point that I'm making here is that by juxtaposition, more persons seem to have died this year so far from COVID-19 because when it took root in March, when we recorded our first case, and the subsequent 2 deaths that were reported in the early stages of this pandemic in Belize, we're looking at a considerable spike where, while we may have been able to some extent, keep a lid on crime and violence and the mortality that comes with that, it seems as if though we're still a bit off, like perhaps considerably off in terms of how we're responding to the COVID situation and taking it seriously. 32 deaths in 1 week, Marlene, is a pretty high number if you're looking at it holistically in terms of, you know, the numbers keep rising, the mortality rate continues to go up as well. And the fact that we still haven't gotten a sound plan of action at this point in time as to how we're going to go about dealing with COVID-19. Yeah. There's a new administration, albeit there's a transition process, but as I had mentioned last week, this is a situation where the powers that be ought to have hit the ground running in terms of trying to put forward something now as a matter of a strategy that we can curtail, if not solely the spread, the mortality rate that comes along with COVID-19.
Definitely. And I think that you bring up one of the critical points. We're all watching what's happening, and there are 2 parts of it. We can watch what the administration, the government does in response to COVID-19, but then it's also looking at our own individual behaviors, because clearly from what we see, the disease is spreading, and it's spreading because we're not following the right protocols. So they're closely linked. However, I think when you talk about the response to COVID, we had heard prior to the election that the administration that is now the government, the PUP, had said that they would put in place a task force, that they would have a task force in hand as quickly as possible if they took office. It's time for us to see that. It's time for us to get this qualified task force together and put together a plan as to how we're going to address this issue. And there are lots of things at play here. You're talking about testing. There is a huge backlog with testing. We have heard stories of people saying that they have been tested and they're waiting a very prolonged period before getting their diagnosis. Thankfully, or they should be in isolation during that time. And so that's allowed for under the quarantine. But you're also talking about approaching the maximum capacity within the hospitals. What happens if we get there? What are we going to do? Whether or not there are going to be restrictions on movements. I know that the consequences of the lockdown had terrible economic repercussions. Yeah. And given the state that we are in the economy, I don't know if that is something that is on the table. But will there be some kind of increased measures to reduce the level of interactions that we see taking place? The point is that we do have to crack down. We are at 116 as of this morning. Yeah. And you're right, this is officially, if we use the numbers from last year, this would be one of our top 10 leading causes of death. It would be, based on last year's numbers, it would be more than people who died with HIV, more than people who died from hypertension and hypertensive renal disease. It would be more than people who died from influenza and pneumonia. And because we've seen a reduction in homicides, it looks like it will be more than that as well. So we've seen the numbers growing exponentially each day. So who's to know, I mean, if we don't stop or if we don't put measures in place, then what are we going to see at the end of this year? Yeah. So I think that your point is valid, and clearly there has to be some kind of plan put forward that we can see the situation be put under control. But it also comes hand in hand with the fact that collectively we have a responsibility. And we all know what we are supposed to be doing. And so when we neglect that responsibility, all we do is further the spread, and also possibly put our own loved ones at risk.
Well, here's the thing, Marlene. You would recall that at the onset of COVID-19 in Belize, the previous administration had put together a bipartisan task force, the National Oversight
NOC.
Committee, which would have dealt with dealing with the issue on a national level, right? And so at the time, the then leader of the opposition also held a seat on the NOC. And he stepped down for several reasons, one of which the fact that the general elections were upcoming and he had to prepare for that elections. And secondly, during that time, they became critical of the government and the NOC by putting forward their own recommendations as to how the matter of dealing with COVID-19 should have been addressed. And so one would want to think that, okay, well, during that time, you would have been strategizing and seeing how best you can approach it should you win the election and come in as the next government. But we're still waiting. And that's the harsh truth. This should have been, in my opinion, if not an altogether seamless transition in terms of the health issue that we're facing, then it should have come closest to it. But from looking around and seeing how we're carrying, it's almost as if though there's nothing in place to say, well, you know what? We need to be able to address this spiking numbers by either instituting new measures or, you know, some kind of a plan of action that says, you know what, this is what we're doing now to effectively mitigate the situation. And I'm being honest in saying we haven't really heard
of
much
the establishment of the task forces yet.
We haven't really heard anything from the Director of Health Services on a one-on-one capacity since the past 2 weeks either. I mean, there are releases that are being issued, but we're not really getting that opportunity to get certain information from him directly.
Well, I know that the meeting took place, the briefing for Cabinet took place last week. But, and you're right, I think that what we have to be is realistic. There are a lot of competing priorities at this moment. But I don't think that that means that we sit by and say, oh, let's just wait. We can't wait. That's 116 families that have lost a loved one, that are grieving across this country and lost a loved one in the most unfortunate circumstances because of just what the disease brings with it. So I think that if at least they could get something in place and look at short-term actions. I believe in having a well-thought-out plan. Dr. Manzanero, as he's explained to us many times before, and the Caribbean group of persons discuss very often what works in other countries, what doesn't work. So I do believe that there has to be a well-thought-out long-term plan, but we also have to have mitigation efforts to reduce when we see things becoming at a critical point as they are right now. So I think the understanding part can be, okay, well, this is what we'll do for now, and we'll lay out the larger plan later. But there has to be some action. Yes, there are floods to address. There are relief efforts that must come with that as well. There is infrastructure work that has to be done as a result of the floods. There's also the economic situation that has to be addressed. But, you know, I think going into the election, this was all on the table.
Now, when you look at it from a regional perspective, the irony, in my point of view, is that if in the beginning we did everything to kind of, you know, minimize the spread, put certain efforts into play, now we're second to Jamaica from a regional point of view in terms of the numbers, right? Which goes to show that whatever we've been doing, while it may have been effective in the beginning, we need to seriously revisit now to try to, you know, bring those numbers down.
I think that's going to be perhaps one of the toughest decisions that's yet to come. Because some of the Caribbean countries have looked at restricting movements once again. I don't know if that's on the table for us. This idea of going back into a lockdown, we see happening in other parts of the world once again. And we don't know I'm trying to remember if we've asked that question specifically before the election. I can't recall whether or not that would be something to be considered here. But if we want to see the numbers somehow slow down, there'll have to be some changes to what we're seeing. And I go back to the point at the end too. It is not just about what the government asks us to do. It is not just what Dr. Manzanera outlines to us. We are all individuals who are capable of being able to do our part as well, so that we don't continue to spread the virus.
Yeah. So that's the first part of the conversation. Yeah. The second part also has to do with the flooding situation, because over the weekend we've been receiving images from various parts of the country that are once again inundated by floodwaters, right? We're looking at the Belize rural north area, which contains the Belize River Valley, and communities such as Maypen, where they had to move livestock out of those areas because the water situation there is above what ordinarily they would be able to handle. And so the Mennonite community, if I'm not mistaken, also came by to assist. If you look at those images, they're moving cows and what have you to higher ground. And as I was mentioning, the Mennonite community was instrumental in lending a hand to rustle the cattle and move them to higher ground, no? Yeah. And so it's a situation that is ongoing. As you heard the acting chief mention earlier, there is more water to come as the waters associated with Hurricane Eta continue to make their way downstream. And so if you drive the Philip Golson Highway at the Hallover Creek, that river is swollen. Like it's raging in terms of the water coming out, and there is more water to come down in the days ahead. And so not to go ahead of our conversations in the show this morning, but those are the situations that we're looking at, Marlene. Yeah. And this will be with us for the next couple of days. In some cases, for the next couple of weeks and months. Last Monday, for instance, I was in Crooked Tree Village, where the causeway, which is the only access in and out of that community, is also underwater. And so they can only access the village by vessels, Coast Guard vessels or other boats that are in the area. And in speaking with the person who is the deputy chair of the village, he was saying that the waters won't recede until January, sometime in January or by early February. So that's a lot of water to deal with. Along with that comes its own issues, its own public health issues, where you have stagnant water settling for a while, you have waterborne illnesses and that sort of stuff as well. Yeah. So those are the points that I wanted to raise this morning.
Yeah, I know. The images, I think, are really... We're dealing with what seems to be another unprecedented situation here. In fact, I think over the weekend or at the end of last week, we started to see the flooding in the north as well. So you had flooding in the west, we had flooding in the north, we had flooding in the central areas. Of course, we keep on monitoring what's happening in the south. Yeah. I know that yesterday, NEMO's last advisory said there are already 288 people in shelters. In 3 different districts. So those are people who have been uprooted from their homes because it's no longer safe. The flood warning, of course, continues, and they're seriously asking, because that's also, and I think to be fair, NEMO did mention to people within the Belize River Valley to move your cattle, and that was after Eta. Now, you know, this is not a blame game. I'm just saying that now for any other area that's being told, plan ahead and move your cattle, protect your agriculture if you can, then please pay attention, because they're not, just because you don't see the waters rising right now, it doesn't mean that it's not forecast to do so. So you do have to take these warnings seriously, and there still is a flood warning in effect for Corozal, Orange Walk, Cayo, and Belize districts. So we hope that people are paying attention to it. Remember, don't move around in flood waters because you may not know the strength of the water. It can definitely be a lot stronger than you think. consider the water sanitization that is being recommended. BWS is saying store safe water if you can, and pay attention to the water that you do have. If it's brown, if it smells, don't use it.
Yeah. One of the things that we're yet to get in terms of information is perhaps what the impact has been thus far on the agriculture sector.
Yeah.
I know that in the Cayo district, for instance, my colleague Andrea has been following what has been taking place with the vegetable farmers in the Spanish lookout area. And they have incurred tremendous losses because the water has damaged crops. The water has also damaged the access way for them to get to their respective farms and what have you. And so it would be interesting what the economic assessment would be in terms of damages associated with the extreme flooding situation that we're experiencing. Right? So I just wanted to bring that up as part of a rounded conversation on two of the most pressing issues that we're faced with currently. And so we'll be discussing more of that, or we'll be emphasizing more of that in our newscast at 6 o'clock this evening.
All right, as we said, today we are going to be talking a bit more about the flooding situation, specifically within the central region. We're going to be joined by a representative of NEMO to talk about where they are encouraging people, or what are the concerns for this particular area, and what the situation is as of this morning.
And of course, we're going to be joined by the Belize Red Cross. They too have sprung into action to provide relief assistance to persons who have either been displaced or who have been impacted one way or the other by the extreme flood situation.
That's right. And we are going to be getting a preview of the activities that are coming up for 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. It's a very important topic that we can't talk about enough. We're going to hear what the organizations are going to be doing to keep this issue on the front burner. So that's what we have in store for the show for today, but we've got to take a break. But we got a birthday shout out.
We are saying happy birthday to Marva Lozano. She's celebrating her 66th birthday today. I also want to shout out my good friend Clement Palacio, Papa Roots. He's also celebrating his birthday today. Happy birthday, my brother.
All right, so to Clement and Marva, do have a great day today. And of course, that greeting comes from all of us here at Channel 5 and Open Your Eyes. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking to NEMO about the situation in Central Region. Please stay tuned.
Our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us. Then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something. The Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. Stronger together. The Belize Bank. Our country. Your bank.
I'm sure you heard of Smart's new loyalty rewards program. And I'm even more sure you have tons of awards just waiting to be claimed. I'll show you how to access those awards using Smart's web portal. But first, let's sign up for an account at a Smart showroom near you. Now, with that being out of the way, let's go to the internet and connect. Log in to myaccount.smart-bz.com on your laptop or desktop in the comforts of your home and log in. Enter your number along with the password the customer care gave you, which you can change in the portal, and hit enter. Now, you're officially in the portal where you can see your balance and other account details. Let's go to the Smart Loyalty button and see how much stars we have. With these stars, let's hit redeem and start claiming those rewards. We want to click the bundle purchase button, then next, and we can now choose as much rewards as we can with the stars we have. When you're done, just click finish and the rewards will be added to your mobile number immediately. So remember, just by making calls, texting, or using data, you get free rewards points that you can redeem easily using the portal.
Smart, bringing people together.
Everyone is at risk of catching COVID-19, so it's important to quickly recognize signs and symptoms of the infection. The most common symptoms are fever, dry cough, and tiredness or fatigue. Some people may also have sore throat, aches and pains, stuffy nose, or diarrhea. But a few people have also reported pink eye or conjunctivitis, headache, loss of taste or smell, a rash on skin, or change in the color of fingers or toes. Emergency warning signs that require immediate medical attention are extreme difficulty breathing, severe constant pain or pressure in the chest, becoming confused, unable to talk or move, bluish lips, face, fingers, or toes. For more information, call 0800 MOH-CARE. Help keep Belize safe.
Caused intense flooding overnight in the western and southern parts of the country.
Yeah?
Do we need to renew the insurance policy?
The
insurance policy?
Were impassable
Oh, let me check.
Renew your policies, file a claim, and even send us a message using RFNG online.
No, we're good. It says we're covered.
Okay, great.
It pays to get it right with RFNG Insurance, a road group company.
And welcome back. As we mentioned before we went to the commercial break, we will begin our first conversation this morning with Al Westby. He's from the National Emergency Management Organization and is the Central Regional Coordinator for NEMO. And our conversation with him this morning will be focused primarily on the flood situation and what NEMO is doing in response to it. That being said, good morning, Al.
Good morning, Ms. Annie. Good morning, Marlene. And thanks, yes, as we were speaking earlier, the flood continues in the Cayo area. It's receding slowly. However, we still have people in shelters in the Color Creek area, and 2 families from the Cayo area.
Okay, my understanding is, for starters, Al, that Color Creek remains sort of a problem area in a manner of speaking because it's low-lying and it has been affected twice now by floodwaters, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Kisani.
And there are a total of like about 88 persons who are seeking shelter from Color Creek alone?
That's correct.
What has been the effort by NEMO in terms of reaching out to this community to provide any form of assistance, either evacuation or working together with the Belize Red Cross to get as much relief efforts underway there?
Well, I must say that I think it's going pretty good. One, we must remember that this event happened on the brink of an election. Government change, and the new government came in with their boots on and everything, and we just continued to do the assessment, assist people, evacuate people during and after. And that's where we are. People continue getting assistance. We're still getting calls every now and then from certain areas where water is going up to move people out, put them in shelters. The process is going very, very well.
Yeah. Now, since we haven't been, since ETA, have you had emergency calls, or is it more responding to slow rising water?
It's more responding to rising water.
Yeah. Yeah. And how does that change the response from NEMO?
It doesn't change because that's part of the mandate. We prepare for a time like this. We prepare before, during, and after. So you will be getting these calls. You will get calls before. You will get calls during to rescue people. You will get calls after that people are trapped water and it's coming up to their house floor or something. You have to relocate them and things like that. So it's within our mandate. We prepare. We are prepared for the scenarios.
So the last report from NEMO says that almost 288 people are in shelters, including the group from Cala Creek, as you noted. Do you foresee that we're going to see more people moving into shelters by the end of the week?
Not in the Cayo area. And the report you're getting is more or less correct, because what our national coordinator does, he stays behind everybody. So, like 2 or 3 times a day, they have to update the reports, because they never know. For example, like right now in the Belize rural area, our last report was like 40 something in shelter. I think it was 45 or something. Up to last night, the coordinator going into Limonal, moving I think 2 or 3 families. But I could tell you by this morning that there could be a change in that already, numbers going up. In the western part of the country, we don't expect that to happen because the rain kind of hold up right now. It's raining off and on, but not as much, and our counterparts in Guatemala is telling us the same thing. So we don't expect that the both rivers continue rising. The Macala and the Mopane is receding, but very slow.
What is the situation in the Belize River Valley area, where water continues to rise? There are people whose livelihoods in terms of the livestock farming seem to be threatened. What are we looking at there?
Repeat that for me, Tony, sorry.
Yeah, I'm asking you, what's the situation in the River Valley area, for instance, in Maypen and those other communities where water continues to rise and people's livelihoods are being threatened?
Okay, one of the problems in the Belize River Valley, remember they are the catchment area for the Belize River, which Mopan and Macau join and farm that river going down. However, you have to think about Spanish Creek and the Coquet Tree Lagoon. Spanish Creek is going up, the water coming from the west and along backing up from the Coquet Tree. So it's a double impact for that area, so all the lagoons overflow and affect those areas along with the river.
The Met Service says that we are expecting another wave on Thursday, at least another 24 to 48 hours of rainfall. What would be the areas of concerns for you, of concern for you moving forward, knowing that we are going to get more inundation?
It will be the same amount of people. Just keep warning. For example, in the western part here, we keep warning these people. If you notice, Cala Creek was completely cut off from the Hammock Bridge and the culvert at the north side of it going to Bullet Tree. However, a fix was done to the culvert, but if the rain comes again, water start rising, water coming from the tributaries, that culvert is liable to wash away again. So Cala Creek will be completely cut off again. You have you saw in some pictures where Minister Shebat was in Belize, where that's the main road. That's another hotspot we have there, water coming up and washing away that culvert. But nevertheless, I keep warning. At this time, everybody is aware of what's happening now. Everybody, we getting calls, people checking with us, and things like that. And that's what it's about. They are well concerned of the present weather ahead of us and the continuous flooding and rain.
Yeah. So we're not. When you talk about the Belize River Valley, one of the a part of what was discussed last week was that this water was going to move downstream. In Belize City, it's only been in Belama that we've been seeing some flooding.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. What area of Belama and how bad is it?
My report I got from a NEMO coordinator, because I'm operational from the Kaya office at this moment. But communicating with our NEMO coordinator, Ms. Melamed, asked me. We had one gentleman from Bongolongo. They had to put into a shelter because of the same thing. Nevertheless, the mayor did a tour yesterday, and from my understanding, he didn't see no reason for us to activate the UOC or much danger within the area, and that was great. If the mayor goes out there and he's telling you himself what he sees for us, and then that's a plus for us there. Yeah. I was really amazed and felt good with the report I got back from that.
Okay. So for now, you're still just looking at the residual of the floods that left over in the west, and the Belize River Valley is feeling the brunt of it right now.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. That's correct, ma'am, really.
What about the area of the Freetown Siboon behind Hattieville?
That's also a point of concern. When I say Belize River Valley, I must reiterate that it might not be in there, but Hattieville and these areas, we cover that area with the same name. Last night the water was, I think, about 2 feet somewhere within the Boom Hattieville Road. Speaking to the coordinator last night, he says that it was rising. And that's the area where, if you're familiar with it, the piece that they have cemented, yeah, that's the area there. And also somewhere around the police station. So I haven't gotten a report from him since. Yes, I'm waiting. These are the hours they're sending their situation report. So we're basically waiting for that at this moment. In the Belmopan area, which I also covered, I report from the coordinator, yes, that the river is receding slowly. At the Motomaro area, Roaring Creek, we have a little spot in GNW Creek and Mayamapan Creek. They are both, Mayamapan is normal and the GNW area is receding also.
Let me ask a question in terms of the extent of the damage. We have about, as I said, NEMO is reporting 288 persons in shelters, but that doesn't mean that that's the limit to how many people have left their homes. There have been many more who've left with families, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And from what you've assessed, at least in the central region, what's the extent of loss that these households have experienced?
In Kala Creek and the Bullet Tree area, a lot of people got extensive damage because of flood water going all up in their houses, damages to their household items. At this point, I cannot give you a figure more or less, but from experience and what I can tell you happened before, definitely these people are the people who always get impacted within the system. Kala Creek might be a little different because if you could remember 2008, everybody got affected there. But what we learned in 2008, there was one house on stilts there about 9 foot high.
Wow.
And that was the house that survived the flood. And with the idea of our national coordinator, Mr. Defour, he got I think it was the Canadian government, the Canadian donors to come in and do a project there for us, and we elevated and built. I think we built. It's 2008. It's quite
it's a while ago.
We built a couple of houses there, and we elevated the other wooden structures that was on the ground to the 8-9 feet. So what I'm saying, the impact would be less in homes because of those elevations that we did with those houses. But not doing that, then it would have been a whole village again. Nevertheless, all these people living in those houses had to come out and go into shelter, and which they are still are.
So they may not have damage, but they've left because they would have been stranded in the home.
Yes, that's correct, ma'am.
Okay.
And we have to remember that these villages run off the rudimentary water system, and whenever it floods like this, that's a huge impact they have with water, because the water line breaks, or they have to, for example, Car Creek, the main water line runs connected to the Hammock Bridge from the pump, which is nearby, so they have to either cut or release that water line for it to flow across without get damaged. So at this point, they don't have any water. So that's a thing that we have to constantly processing release for water in that area.
All right, Al, any advice to people who are watching this morning? We'll see some more sunshine today and tomorrow. And, I think we still need to be cautious of what's to come.
Yeah, just continue to be cautious. It's never over until it's over. And if you notice, flood bring debris, flood bring all kind of wild animals. If you look at Facebook, you see a snake, somebody catching a snake and things like that. We see kids bathing in these water. We discourage them from do that because we already have the pandemic on our hand, and then we don't want other pandemics to break out, dengue and things like that. We must help ourselves and continue to be proactive within our families and things. Stick to your family plan, stick together, and then work with us. It can work as long as you are your first responder.
All right. Thank you very much, Al.
Okay, thanks, Marlene. Thanks you, Tony.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Bye.
All right, so that was the coordinator, the Central Regional Coordinator for NEMO, Al Westby, giving us an update as to what's happening with the flood situation across the country.
All right. And from talking about the situation of the floods to the flood relief efforts, we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to the Belize Red Cross about what they're doing to help families that have been affected by the floods.
Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Fulltech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere, satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
Contraband is the illegal importation of goods such as alcohol, tobacco, foods, and parts. Apart from breaking the law, smugglers are also now endangering the health of all Belizeans. They risk bringing coronavirus into Belize with their contraband. To keep COVID-19 out of Belize, everyone entering the country is screened and quarantined. But contraband smugglers are not using legal entry points and are bypassing all safety measures. And these same smugglers are moving among the population. They could be carrying the virus. By coming into the country illegally, they could cause outbreaks of COVID-19. Buying or smuggling contraband is putting yourself, your family, and the entire country at risk. Report smuggling. For SMART, call 0800-JUMPERS or 0800-BORDERS. For Digi, 0800-SAVE-BZE. This message is brought to you by the Belize Police Department and the Belize Bank,
in partnership with the British High Commission.
In these challenging times, the one thing that is certain is that the Belize Bank Limited is here for you. There is nothing more important than your health and safety, and we continue to make every effort to make banking safer for you. Our staff is working around the clock to make sure you can do your banking conveniently 24/7 using our mobile banking app and online banking and keeping ATMs up and running. We value your relationship with us and are here to provide the support you need. First responders are also out there 24/7. Thank you, healthcare workers, security forces, firefighters, caregivers. You are all appreciated. Stay safe. We will get through this together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
Stay safe and submit your sickness benefit claim form electronically. Follow these 4 steps. Step 1. Obtain your medical certificate. At consultation, the doctor certifies your days of illness and provides you with a medical certificate. Step 2. Fill out your sickness benefit form. Complete all the fields in parts 1 to 4 on the front page of the sickness benefit form. Step 3. Request your salaries record form. Contact your employer for your salaries record form. Step 4. Submit your sickness benefit claim form. Scan or take a clear picture of the sickness benefit form, salaries record, and proof of bank account. Email the documents to claims@socialsecurity.org.bz within 14 days. You will receive an email reply confirming receipt of your claim. After the submission of all documents, your claim is processed for payment to your account. For any COVID-related illnesses, contact the Ministry of Health for further guidance. Social Security Board, safeguarding you, your family, your future.
And we're back, and we're moving into our second part of our show for today. We focused first on the latest update on the floods, and now we're talking about the flood relief efforts. Here to tell us what the Belize Red Cross is doing, we are joined by the Director General, Lily Bowman. Good morning.
Good morning, Lily.
Morning, Marlene. Morning, Isani. Morning, Belize.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We know that you guys sprung into action from after the first flood, and so I wanted to just find out how things have been going and what you've been finding out in the field.
Well, yes, you are right. We definitely started our response pretty quickly after the first flood. It's a little hard when we're responding to floods because it's hard to get to the community. The communities are really impossible especially for the first few days after the initial impact. But in this case now, Marlene, it's like we have double trouble because Ayutthaya came right in the heels of ETA. And so with the ground already fully saturated, the rains that Iota brought are compounding the situation. But the situation in the field, from what I see from the pictures that my team bring back, it's pretty dim and sad. I mean, just a few weeks before Christmas, you know, and these people have to be suffering with all this water around them, water in their homes, all the destruction that it has brought to them, their household items that they have lost, you know, impossible to get out, some of them, to even, you know, buy food. So our relief is looking, well, we have been in the Belize district.
Yes.
Belize a little bit, Belize district, especially like in the Hattieville area, this Freetown Siboon, and the Belize River Valley area, and Crooked Tree. That's where we have been. Yesterday we were in, not yesterday, Saturday we were in Crooked Tree, and we're providing food. We're providing the usual blankets, jerry cans, high kits, cleaning kits. That's what they need, cleaning kits, because all the mud that is left settled in their homes, it's very necessary for them to get rid of that quickly, because, you know, what follows floods is normally diseases, right, especially from the water and the mud.
Because the water is it's filthy.
It's filthy, and it brings a lot of mud with it, you know. So, and sometimes this stays in the homes, and it causes yet another problem with vector-borne and waterborne diseases. So the Belize Red Cross is out there. I mean, it's kind of slow right now because we cannot get to all the communities. But we are also, apart from providing relief, the usual relief, Marlene, we are looking at a little down the road where after all this, they will need to receive a little bit of education on how to treat their water, their drinking water, their cooking water, you know, and a little bit about vector-borne diseases. So we're looking at conducting some water and sanitation activities with the affected communities, as well as we'll be talking about some hygiene issues where vector-borne diseases are concerned.
Let me ask, sorry.
From a logistical point of view, how do you determine which community you would need to provide the most resources to, in terms of either assisting with food, cleaning supplies, or any other form of relief?
Yeah, well, because of the situation with the floods, that you can't be in and out of these communities, it's hard to say beforehand, except that we do speak with NEMO often, and they are the ones who would give us tips about, or directions about, you know, which communities are most affected right now. But once we are in the community, we carry out our assessments, but we also have distribution items on hand to make it easier instead of going in and out. So we are conducting ongoing assessments, as well as we're distributing at the same time. And in conversation with the people there at that point is when we know if we have to come back in with you know, different support or other support. Yeah. But normally, like after a hurricane, we can go in right away and carry out house-to-house assessments. But with a flood, it's hard because of the water that keeps us, you know, keeps the community inaccessible.
Yeah. How many families have you been able to reach out to so far?
Well, we're only out like 2 weeks, not even 2 full weeks yet. So we have covered like 1,002 people, which equates to about 230 families. Yeah. But we're moving village to village with one team right now. We hope that we could double that in a little while, as soon as we are able to access more communities.
Yeah. And, you know, are you also looking for support in volunteers and also for assistance in donations?
Well, in volunteers, we have a lot of volunteers, but we have to remember to the COVID situation.
Yes.
We cannot be crowded in a vehicle. We cannot have a whole lot of people together. We have to, and you know, and this is something that has to be in forefront of our minds as we go out there, accessing the communities and talking to people face to face. We have to remember the social distancing regulations. We have to remember wearing masks, and we cannot have a big group out there together. So it's kind of hard with with all the volunteers that are there on standby, but we're coping, and we're hoping that we can involve a few other volunteers. But we have our own volunteers, really, and we have volunteers from within these communities because we've been working with them for years.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people who come out to support when that time is needed.
Yeah. And donations that you're accepting?
Donations, yes, we are accepting donations, of course. People have been dropping off stuff, Marlene, at the office, clothing, kitchen stuff, household items, some dry food, non-perishable food items, and we are accepting these because we know the need that is out there. So yes, we are accepting donations at our headquarters, and of course monetary donations are most welcome, because then we can put it into like more dire needs, like for instance food, water, that these people really need.
Yeah. And that was what I was going to ask. Where do you see their biggest needs? What would you encourage people to, because you usually get a lot of clothing, and I'm sure they need that, but you also need other things as well.
Well, they do need mattresses. I mean, a lot of them have lost their beds. Their mattresses are soaked, and even if those dry after a while, the mold in them, it's not safe, it's not sanitary for them to lie on. So they do need mattresses. They need food because it's hard for them to come out. Some of them have to depend on boats to bring them out, and it's not like regular, and the demand is high to in and out. So they have to wait like long periods of time to get out. So water, drinking water, because of course the water is all contaminated right now. So they need drinking water. I suppose they will need some medication, like topical creams and stuff like that, and maybe cough and cold medicines. But we don't really like to give those because we're not medics, and we don't want to complicate anything. So, but these are the things. I know clothing, you could wash your clothes and hang it out and it could dry, but like your mattresses, that keeps soaked for quite a long time. And then mold sets in. They also need all the cleaning material that they could get. We try our best to take cleaning kits to everybody that we can see that needs. But if people can, gather those, we would definitely appreciate that.
Let's go back a bit. Let's go back a bit here, Lily, with respect to the COVID situation and the protocols that you guys at the Red Cross have in place, because you're essentially frontline workers now in terms of the response to the flood situation. Talk to us a bit about that. What safeguards do you guys have in place as your volunteers go out there on a day-to-day basis?
On a day-to-day basis, going out there to the communities, they're putting their lives at risk. That is an understatement. However, we make sure that they, first of all, keep in mind that COVID is real. It's still with us. Be careful. We give them this pep talk before they leave. Wear your masks. Never take them off. Hand sanitize over and over and over. If you could wash your hands, wash your hands. They do have protective gowns to wear, but because they wear their raincoats, like for instance in this instance, and they wear their vests for visibility, it's kind of hard for them to wear the gowns as well. Plus, they're not really inside the homes, and they try to maintain that safe distance between them and the recipients. So, it's just mainly to exercise and to put in place these regulations once you're in the field. Yeah. And this is always reminded to them, but they're provided with their gears. They're provided with, like, for instance, right now in this rainy season, with all the rain and the floods, they are provided with their rubber boots, their raincoats, their vests, their masks, hand sanitizers. Yeah. And, the best thing is the knowledge that we give them and keep reminding them of safe distance, 6 feet apart, wash hands and so forth.
Yeah. And, it's so commendable when you think about it, because you're right. They are putting themselves at risk. We know that the advice is to not go into new places, kind of just stay in your own circle. But it's a need that has to be met that the Belize Red Cross has always offered. Lily, how do people get donations to the Red Cross? And if people from the diaspora are watching and they want to offer some monetary support or send things for assistance, how can they do so?
We do accept credit cards.
Okay.
Except that if you're away, it would have to be manually inputted into the machine. Okay. We have an account in every bank, so anywhere from anywhere in the country, they can just come in and deposit to the Belize Red Cross appeal account. We also have a very active disaster account in the Heritage Bank. That account number is 1082665. I don't have all the other numbers quite at hand, and even if I say it right now, people might not remember them, but they could just ask for the Belize Red Cross appeal account in any of the banks, and they'll know where to put the donations. You could also drop it off at our headquarters in Belize City or any of our offices, and they'll get it to us. The diaspora, people have been sending through Western Union and MoneyGram.
Okay.
The only thing with that is that I don't think you can send it in the Belize Red Cross name. It would have to be in one of our names, and then we get it and deposit it. And then we send a copy of that receipt to the person.
Okay.
All right. That's how we have worked so far.
So
unfortunately, we have a gadget on our on a finalized website yet. We hope to get that up and running in the very near future, but for now, that's what we do.
So once again, those priorities that you've spoken about, you're talking about food, clean water, cleaning supplies, and that includes the broom, the mop, the bucket.
Broom, Clorox, soap powder.
Yeah.
A little bit of flash, I guess.
Yeah. Bedding is key as well, and I mean, I don't know if people can drop off mattresses, but they can give some money towards purchasing new mattresses for the families that have been affected.
Yeah.
All right.
I am sure some people have lost their electronic devices and so, but I feel like those can wait. Yeah. These are the priority things that they need. Yeah. And food is very important. The only thing is that some of them have lost their stoves and so forth. So if anybody has like a second-hand stove that they could give a family in need, that would help them too. But once you get, if you give them like canned food and so that they can quickly open and eat from the can or whatever, that would help as well.
All right. Well, Lily, thank you for letting us know what has been happening with your relief efforts, and most importantly, how the rest of us can help towards the cause.
Sure, Marlene. Anytime, we're right here. This is what we're here for, in quick relief, bringing quick relief to the people that are most affected. And of course, we are working within the national response system. We're not working on our own. We share our information, and we try our best to be able to avoid duplications if it's not necessary, because sometimes duplication is necessary. But yeah, and that's, we continue to do this for as long as we can. Of course, everything depends on the funding that we have. Our international federation is supporting us. We have also had donors come up, like Digi has supported, Courts Belize has supported, the Belize Hotel Association, and I'd like to tell these people thank you very much. And we welcome any other donor who sees it fit and is able to contribute to the cause.
Okay, thank you very much, and stay safe.
Thank you, Marlene. Thank you, Iseni.
And there you have it. All right, there we had it. That was Director General from Belize Red Cross, Lily Bowman, talking about the relief efforts that they have been doing for the past 2 weeks. Very critical work there. And we're going to shift gears very quickly to get a wrap up on the flood situation. We are talking to the principal hydrologist in the hydrology unit, Tennille Hendy, to tell us a bit about what we can expect in the days ahead. Good morning.
Good morning, Tennille.
Good morning, Marlene and Isani.
What are we looking at? We started off earlier discussing with the acting chief Met in terms of the waters that we expect to get by way of rainfall over the next few days. We also spoke with the regional coordinator for NEMO earlier. From your end, what are we looking at in terms of the flood situation and some of the areas that we need to be concerned about in the country?
Okay, so we can expect floods. We can expect that for the remainder of this week. We always have a rule of thumb that says as the rain persists and we're already at flood stage, then we expect the flooding to persist, no? But Isani and Marlene, it's practically the country that's experiencing some level of flood. In the north, with the Rio Hondo, they have already reached flood stage, and over the weekend, some of them have overflowed their banks, and they still continue to increase steadily. So we're looking at floods in the north for the Belize River. We saw with the recent rains from Iota, the low-level bridge in San Ignacio, as well as Iguana Creek, have already been flooded. And so we can expect those waters to come down. Benque Viejo also is seeing flood levels. On the Cookie Tree Lagoon, it's inundated. It continues to increase. On the Sibun River, it's still in flood stage, and it's increasing as well. So we're looking to see flooding in those areas. It's not limited to those areas, but those are the most prominent ones at this time.
Tennille, have we seen the worst of the flood situation so far?
Okay, sorry, Marlene?
I was asking if we have seen the worst of the floods so far.
I can't say that we've seen the worst. We're still seeing flooding in Iguana Creek, and we know before with ETA, the downstream communities needed to wait until that water comes down. So even after this one, we're looking at possibly another wave coming down in these areas. If that water has not receded or proceeded to run off into the ocean or into the sea, then we can see an exacerbation of the flood levels that we're currently seeing. Specifically in the north, we haven't been seeing those flood levels too prominent, but we have been seeing those now. Actually, some of them are approaching the historical mid-stage. It's not gone beyond by now, because we have to update our data from our observers who are on the ground in these areas.
And what parts of the north have been the most affected so far?
Well, we have quite a lot of communities that are cut off. Last information to me is that Caledonia was cut off, Sartaneja was cut off. We have the Albion Islands, San Antonio, San Roman, Santa Cruz, Blue Creek, Douglas, San Roman. I can go on, but it's most of the communities in the north that are experiencing flood levels.
And that's just all from the inundation we saw with Iota and this tropical wave?
We have, remember, we still have ETA, Marlene. We still haven't rid ourselves of the floodwaters from ETA. So we're seeing a combination of more than one system along with the current situation.
You're painting a rather grim picture there, Tennille, in terms of all the water that has deluged the country.
Yeah, it's somewhat grim, Isani, but we need to alert persons to know what to expect, because sometimes when you don't know what to expect, that's when it gets hard. So we're trying to not instill fear in people. We're trying to say, look out, be on your guard. This is a situation that you can expect.
So we've been getting, or I should say the neighboring countries, Guatemala specifically, has been getting the same amount of rains that we have. And we know that they have been facing terrible floods themselves. Are we going to see more water coming down from Guatemala as well? Do we also have to factor that part in?
Yes, what happened is that the Rio Hondo, the Mopan, Macau, Belize River system, they're all transboundary. So whatever takes place in those countries, the water will eventually find its way down to Belize. Recall that Belize is a basin, and we're the lowest point leading out to the sea. So whatever happens in the mountains will eventually find its way to the sea, and unfortunately Belize is a part of that route.
Now, what areas should be on the lookout? You had warned us that Belize River Valley would be seeing this flooding from the time the West was facing their floods. Who do we need to put on alert, perhaps to make early plans before they start seeing the extent of the floods?
Okay, well, we had issued a flood warning, actually, Marlene, for all the communities downstream on the Rio Hondo. And we also have a flood warning in effect for the central, western, and southern parts of the country. So we're talking about San Ignacio coming down all the way to Banana Bank, Double Run, Crooked Tree, River Valley, and eventually downstream to the coast, which is Belize City. And we know that some parts of Belize City, mainly the Port Loyola and the Lama Phase 3 and 4, have seen rising floodwaters.
And with the wave that will make its way over the country in the next few days, what can we expect with that?
Well, the rainfall will affect the flooding, Marlene. We can't run away from that one. It's just how much rain that we will be expecting from that system and where it drops. But with rain, we do expect the flooding conditions to prevail.
What's the situation in the south, Tennille?
We've seen that some of them were at flood stage and receding. So they haven't. We haven't gotten any reports as yet. We normally update our forecast by midday today, which is why we need to speak to all our observers in these areas to get the current situation from them. But for our last forecast, we had it that they were at flood stage, but they were receding.
Okay. Well, they've been faring off the best so far?
Yeah, I would think they had a big hit the first time, and this time they're a little bit better off than the rest of the country.
Yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate this update in letting us know what the flood status is across the country. And, of course, we look forward to the next forecast.
Okay, sure.
All right.
No problem. You're welcome, Marlene.
Stay safe.
So that was a brief update from the principal hydrologist in terms of the flood situation that we're facing. Tennille was able to share with us some of the areas of concern in terms of where the flood waters will affect communities such as those in the River Valley and in the Sibun River area.
That's right. And, you know, she started with a very long list of communities that have already been cut off in the north. We hadn't been talking about flooding in the north so much. Clearly, the recent rains have just, well, to be corrected, she said, this is all Eta plus Iota plus the tropical wave. We never quite moved past the flooding of the first storm. And so all of this combined is causing the floods that we're seeing across the country. And we will give you a better overview of what the situation is in our newscast tonight, of course. But we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we're going to shift gears from the floods and look forward to some of the activities that are coming up. 16 Days of Activism is going to get started on November 25th, and we'll tell you all about what's planned for the commemoration of that in the next segment. So please stay tuned.
Currently, we're using Smart Elite VoIP calling plan. We use it interbranch, we use it to call outside, and we also use it to call international. It's far cheaper than what we used to have before. Our equipment are new, PBX box is new. So the PBX is very good because I can call to my Sartaneja branch, I can call to my Kikaka branch, I can call to San Pedro branch, and there's no cost using the PBS. Actually right now, since we're in different locations, I can call main office from where I am at a no cost using the PBX system. I would recommend it, sure I would, especially the big enterprises who has a lot of employees. There's a lot of reduction in costs, 50% of saving. But that on a year, it's a lot of money that we're saving. Money that we could return to our members, since we give back dividend to our members.
Visit our showroom or call 670-6710 to find out how Smart's corporate plan and PBX systems can benefit your business. Consultation is free.
Todos estamos en riesgo de contraer la COVID-19, por lo que es importante reconocer rápidamente los signos y síntomas de la infección. Los síntomas más comunes son fiebre, tos seca y cansancio o fatiga. Algunas personas también pueden tener dolor de garganta, dolores y molestias, congestión nasal o diarrea. Pero algunas personas también han reportado conjuntivitis, dolor de cabeza, pérdida de sabor u olor, sarpullido en la piel o un cambio en el color de los dedos de las manos o los pies. Los signos de alarma de emergencia que requieren atención médica inmediata son dificultad extrema para respirar, dolor constante y severo o presión en el pecho, confusión, dificultad para hablar o moverse, labios, rostro, dedos de las manos o de los pies azulados. Para mayor información, llame al 0800-664-2273. Protejamos nuestra salud.
As the demand for entertainment and gaming increases, so does the demand for bandwidth and faster speeds. If you're a gamer, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about extremely reliable, low latency, high-speed internet connection that is crucial for smooth gaming. A next-generation connection. That's why I chose next-gen high-speed internet for my streaming needs. They are by far the best internet service provider in Belize. NextGen has noticed the vast growth of gaming audience, and as an innovative company, they are the first broadband internet service providers powered by gamers. Now, they're taking the lead in providing a package that's just right for us gamers. So what are you waiting for? Sign up today.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize, CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. For CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
As strong as our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us. Then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something. The Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. Stronger together. The Belize Bank. Our country. Your bank.
caused intense flooding overnight in the western and southern parts of the country.
Yeah?
Do we need to renew the insurance policy?
Highway
The
and
insurance
the
policy.
Highway were impassable.
Oh,
as
let me
water
check.
gushed across the thoroughfare.
Renew your policies, file a claim, and even send us a message using RFNG online.
Now we're good. It says we're covered.
Okay, great.
It pays to get it right with RFNG Insurance, a Road Group company.
Everyone is at risk of catching COVID-19, so it's important to quickly recognize signs and symptoms of the infection. The most common symptoms are fever, dry cough, and tiredness or fatigue. Some people may also have sore throat, aches and pains, stuffy nose, or diarrhea. But a few people have also reported pink eye or conjunctivitis, headache, loss of taste or smell, a rash on skin, or change in the color of fingers or toes. Emergency warning signs that require immediate medical attention are extreme difficulty breathing, severe constant pain or pressure in the chest, becoming confused, unable to talk or move, bluish lips, face, fingers, or toes. For more information, call 0800 MOHCARE. Help keep Belize safe.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And we are back, and we're moving into our final conversation for today as we find out more about how the festivities for the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, how they're going to be carried out in the midst of a pandemic, and why it still is such an important issue that we need to be discussing. We're joined by representatives of 3 different organizations. We have the program officer for the National Women's Commission, Eleanor Murillo. And then we have Diana Perfit, who is the General Secretary at the YWCA. And down to the bottom, we have Joan Burke-Skeen, who is the Executive Director of BFLA. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you for providing this update to us. This is a very critical time that we're entering in. And I just want to find out what the plans are moving forward to ensure that we still keep the conversation going.
Okay. As you know, we have a 16 days planning committee. And so that committee is made up of government and NGOs, including these 2 lovely ladies along with me this morning. And basically, we had to decide as a committee, how are we going to continue our activities? We have been doing year-long activities, but as you know, during the 16 days, we amplify what we have been doing to spread awareness to the general public on gender-based violence. And so this year, looking at the UN team, their team is #OrangeTheWorld. And so as a committee, we decided we want to personalize it to Belize and make it relevant to the type of work that we are doing. And so our team for this year is #OrangeBelize, because we want everybody to orange Belize. Orange is a color where we spread awareness about gender-based violence. The general public saying we say no against violence, especially against women and girls. So the team is #OrangeBelize, respond, prevent, collect, and empower.
All right. Now, let's put it into perspective, though. The situation with gender-based violence. At the start of the pandemic, there was a big concern of the type of violence that could potentially take place in households because people are spending so much time together. What do we know so far about the situation on the ground?
Okay, based on the data, and Collect is a part of the team, which is very important because we want to ensure that we continue to track and to follow the data as it relates to gender-based violence and other gender issues. Yeah. Based on the data, we saw an increase in the first quarter of the year And then the second quarter, we saw a decrease in gender-based violence cases. And I think that was the period where we first had the SOE and so on, and curfew and so on. So we had a little dip. Maybe people were not able to go out, and maybe they were not, calling for help in that case. But as soon as, by the third quarter, we saw cases increasing, or at least the reporting part of it increasing, and so it continued to go up. However, when we look at the data for sexual violence and violence against children, we're seeing a decrease in relation to 2019. So I am hoping that that's a good sign that at the end of the year, that we will actually see a decrease in cases of gender-based violence. I mean, we're still having a lot of cases, especially as it relates to domestic violence, which is a concern, because in these times we do not need additional burdens such as violence. We already have COVID-19, we already have flooding, hurricanes, this is the hurricane season, and thinking about all these things, loss of jobs and so on. And so the pressures and the stress is a factor as it relates to how human beings relate to one another.
Now, we're looking at a time where we cannot openly commemorate and do these other activities in honor of the 16 days. What are we looking at, perhaps by way of either virtual activities or what we have planned on a calendar of events for this year's 16 Days of Activism?
Okay, I will ask my colleagues to go ahead, and then I can jump in afterwards. You all can talk about your activities.
Okay. Hi, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to be at OIE. YWCA this year, we're operating like everybody else, challenged. And one of our very vibrant services that we continue to offer is early childhood education. And so we decided this year we would work through our parents. We have close to 150 children still attending preschool, which I think is fabulous. I'm happy that parents are still engaging their children. We cannot forget that education is important, even when faced with these challenges. So we thought that we would engage our parents. Many of them maybe themselves are witness or maybe even victims of GBV. And so we thought we would do a competition among our parents where we asked them to arrange their virtual space. And we also will do some educating of our young children. We firmly believe that we need to start from the very young children. If we're going to get a grip on domestic violence or gender-based violence, let me say, in our country, we need to really start with our young children and have them grow up understanding that it is not the way to go, that we should not be violating the rights of any of our partners, any girls, any boys. And so that's one of the key things we'll be doing for this year.
Okay, and what about you, Joan?
Okay, I want to put things into perspective for us, so that we can understand why we decide to do the things that we do. And I will go back to how BFLA started operating in the COVID response. As was mentioned earlier, we had to do things as unusual. And so what BFLA did, and particularly with the support of the CEO, Judith Alpuche, Miss Annie Burns from Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they actually did quite a bit of advocacy and lobbying to highlight the importance of sexual and reproductive health in emergency situations. So we were able to, despite the lockdown, with the green light from CEO Lovo from National Security, actually went into communities and in the homes of individuals. Because as was highlighted earlier, there was a significant increase in gender-based violence. With that gender-based violence came things like rape, marital rape, we had situations where there were transactional sex, where persons who were unable to pay their rent because of unemployment had to do or had to provide sexual favors to landlords because they could not afford to pay their rent.
Wow.
So what that forced us to do then, we got in touch with Dr. Bear from the Ministry of Health because, again, we were unable to get our contraceptive stock from our London office. So we got that support from the Ministry of Health where we got some free contraceptives. We then partnered with organizations such as POWER, Productive Organization for Women in Action, with PETAL, and with our circle. And we were able to get support from the BDF as well, because when we put these packages together to send to the district so that women had access to at least contraceptives and emergency contraceptives, that they know where to get these services from. Our nurses, despite all the fears and everything, and I must applaud those nurses who actually went into communities despite everything else and went into homes. We had to provide pap smears in homes, and from that experience we were able to diagnose quite a bit of sexually transmitted infections that required treatment. And we did that from homes and working through the community health workers who their level of commitment in their communities, particularly during COVID, and they mobilized their communities so that we were able to provide those services. We could not have done this without the support of UNFPA and the Spotlight project, because through that UNFPA assisted with us procuring at least basic supplies to give our team that went out there the level of support and protection that they needed, as well as supported our being able to mobilize ourselves to the communities. What we also were able to do through that support was to hire or contracted the services of a professional counselor. So through that, we were able to provide e-counseling. And from that e-counseling, as Ms. Maria mentioned, that you had women who were unable to actually go to the regular site that they would go and make their reports, but they were able to reach out to the counselor and seeking e-counseling. Through that, the counselor, Ms. Anna Sambala, was able to deal with issues of gender-based violence, with sexual violence, with incest, and rape. And because everybody was at home and there was nothing much to do, so we saw an increase in these issues. From that, when we looked at how do we continue, we saw 16 days as an opportunity for us to continue this work, to continue to address the issues of gender-based violence, but making sure that we integrate sexual and reproductive health, including GBV, in all the activities that we will continue to do. Prior to COVID, we had done an assessment of the implementation of the national gender-based plan. We will be launching the policy brief with our partners to basically say this is where we are in regards to the implementation of the plan that all of us had agreed to take ownership of, and to see how we move forward with that plan and whatever other commitments we can get. We will continue to provide community-based services and reaching out to those who we consider to be most vulnerable, which are women and children, and particularly girls.
Claire.
We have heard some horrific stories during COVID, and we want to continue to address that. We are able to do that with, of course, as I said, our staff who are out there in the fields, as well as those who are behind the scenes, making sure that we can continue to work in these kinds of confinement.
So what I hear from all three of you is that you have made every effort and followed through on innovating so that you can still keep up with providing services to your populations. But let's focus on the commemoration and the celebration of what is 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. It starts on the 25th with the International Day Against Gender-Based Violence and ends on Human Rights Day. And all during that time, there are a lot of activities.
Sure.
What we've seen over time is that the purpose is twofold. One, to help people who are in a situation where they're victims of some form of violence to find a way out and to get the help that they need. But it's also a really critical time for a national conversation. How do we get that national conversation started? I mean, we know how grim the picture was before COVID about exposure to violence, victims of violence, and I mean physical and sexual. So we knew how bad things were before. We still don't have all the data yet to know how the pandemic has perhaps impacted that. Let's talk about how we get the national conversation going once again on the situation of gender-based violence.
Well, one way the national conversation has continued is again going back to our mandate, which is the National Gender-Based Violence Action Plan. And so we always, whatever we do, we always have to go back to that document to see what is required of us, of each of us. And throughout this year, we have been having conversation, have been holding, communication with the main stakeholders to ensure that the services are there for survivors of gender-based violence. We don't want to say victims. We want to keep on saying survivors of gender-based violence. So in terms of the police, they are a part of our committees. They are a part of the conversation. We continue to have meetings to see what's going on. The healthcare system, the Ministry of Human Development as it relates to the women and family support services that really caters to gender-based violence as it relates to women, human services as it relates to children. And so the conversation has not stopped. And as Ms. Jones said, one of the things that we are doing with our mandated documents is to really review and see where we are and how we can improve on these documents to see what are the things we have accomplished and what are the things that we have not even touched as yet, and how we can improve, what needs to change, and so on. So that is one way that we have continued the conversation. And now even with a new set of ministers in place, again, we would need to ensure that everybody is on the same page and understand what are in these documents and what is expected from them, the type of support that we will need.
Yeah. Now, anybody else wanted to?
If I could jump in,
Sure.
Marlene, I agree. The conversation never stopped. In all of our respective NGOs and organizations, we have been doing things, particularly during the COVID and the start of COVID. We've had, Ms. Joan went through a really good explanation of all the things they did. And I think all of us have been doing stuff. So the conversation has never stopped. It maybe got drowned a bit in all of what is happening and all the unexpected and the first time incidences and emergencies that our country has faced. But I think we do need to ensure that it's not lost. Spotlight is on stream, and maybe Ms. Joan, I think, can talk a little bit more about Spotlight and what they have planned. But Spotlight is a huge project that we are hoping has the impact that is intended and expected to end violence against family and children, families and women and girls. And that's what I wanted to say. We've been doing things, but we need for the nation to hear us, and we do need buy-in from our ministers. And unless we get it from the highest levels in the country, it always will seem drowned and not echo as loudly as we want it to.
Yeah. Joan?
I just want to add, when we talk about the national conversation, I think that each and every citizen of this country has a role to play in ending gender-based violence. And when we talk about the national conversation, we need key partners at the table to be able to clearly define what's the role of every individual. We can no longer look at GBVO, that is a private matter, or it's something between a man and a woman, or in the confines of two walls. No, we are yet as a country to be able to do a proper assessment as to the economic cost to this country of gender-based violence. And so that's the kind of conversation now that we need to do in regards to the national conversation. And to see the Miss Maria and Miss Diana said that we need now to bring the new leaders at the table. We need to be able to see that GBV affects every ministry, because at the end of the day, it's individuals who are affected by GBV. We have both the victim or survivor as well as the perpetrator.
Yeah.
So that's how we need to start the conversation.
And
because
also,
individuals need to realize that, hey, we have many people at the table and that need to put their pound of flesh. No?
Yeah.
There are some areas, I think, that have been identified over the years, and I know that there's a great deal of advocacy work. I know NWC can talk about their reporting mechanism if people are dissatisfied with services. You know, we had a very thorough or a very robust conversation, I should say, about gender-based violence going into the elections because of some of the issues we saw just before then. And I think that we have heard from police representatives about what they can do and what perhaps they need to do to strengthen their response there. When you look at immediate priority areas, if you have an audience with the new minister and you want to talk about where you can start to plug some holes to be able to adequately have an impact on the situation of gender-based violence, where would you identify?
I would think the first thing would be education. While we have done a lot of communication, a lot of awareness, sensitization, training, education across the board, not just to a particular set of people, not just to the duty bearers, but also to the general public, starting with children, parents, and so on and so forth. So I think the education component is very important. We need a behavioral change, you know, a strong program for behavioral change, because even though we have been doing a lot of sensitization, awareness, we have a lot of campaigns running through the television, the radio, through social media, we still continue to hear a lot of the normalization of violence in the home, violence in the streets, and so on.
Yeah.
And so I think the education component is the most important right now, which means that it requires funding and also
a strategy
as a priority.
Yeah, I like. And for you, Joan, Deanna?
I believe our men and boys, we have to engage them. And I think all efforts are being made to engage men and boys. We do realize that they play a key role. And if we're not able to get them to change the way they see things, the way they think, the way they engage women, then we're fighting a losing battle. And our young children, I do believe if we do not start to orient our children differently, we'll never get rid of this problem. Children have to understand from very young what we see as right and wrong and how their expected to treat the other sex, and that respect has to be a key part, and that there are rights that are being violated when we don't do certain things. So I would want to think, and of course we need to keep up the educating of our girls, because sometimes our girls, as girls, we're brought up in a certain way to believe that certain things are okay. We've seen it fashioned, we've seen it being accepted by our parents and our grandparents and our aunts and women around us, and we begin to think it's okay. So I think it's an all-around education, but we need to hone in on the people who will help to ensure that change can happen.
Yeah.
Yes, I would never argue that education is important, and yes, education. However, I also believe that we need to explore the possibilities of putting in quick response mechanism in place, because we have had, when we look at rural communities, and there is very little to reach out to families in situation of violence. There are some communities with not even a police unit, and so look at what we can do. We've had situations where women take their matters to the court. You have all these adjournments. We need to have a very robust response, and not only response to the survivors, but put programs in place for perpetrators as well. And too often people just get off. And so you have these situations that end up in death at times, right? So we really need to, in addition to the education, start putting in programs in place that can effectively respond to GBV in this country.
Do you think we still have a situation where people are dismissive unless it's critical, like someone dies or there's a big issue brought out to the main conversation?
Yes, we are seeing. We have launched and presently implementing the victims complaint mechanism.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that is coming out from that implementation. That even in 2020, we still have survivors of gender-based violence seeking help from these mandated institutions, and they're still turned away. And if we're saying we need to improve the systems and services that are in place, then hopefully the kind of information and data coming out from this mechanism can assist us in making some of the changes that is desperately needed in the way we address, as Ms. Jones said, not only the survivors, but also the perpetrators of violence.
Yeah.
When they are told, they are let off, even though they have breach a protection, a restraining order, or something like that. So it's both ways. It's the services, definitely, the multi-sectoral response, the improvement, providing adequate services, and also looking at the perpetrators and telling them, letting it seem like it's okay.
Yeah.
Or they have not committed a major crime or something like that. So the kind of mentality that we have, again, it goes back to education, even in the people who are mandated to do so.
Yeah. It is unfortunate because we still hear a lot of the accepting or
if I could just jump in,
behaviors.
I mean, I agree with everything, and I think education is important. And also we need to let our people understand that your financial circumstances does not make it any less important for us to focus on and to eradicate. I've been in circumstances where I've listened to young men look at women passing on the street and saying, look how she gone crazy. And she had everything where she needed. And I'm like, no, but you do not know the circumstances in that woman's life. No, miss, she had everything where she needed. So people view things very differently, not understanding, that the woman probably suffered a lot of, abuse or whatever made her the way she was. But they're focused on she had everything material and financial she needed. Why she's acting like that. So there's still that grassroots or that elementary understanding of what and how women and people are affected by different circumstances and actions in their lives.
Well, I'm glad that we sparked this conversation this morning, and hopefully people will at least introduce it and start to gauge the reactions and the feedback that they get. But let's shift gears, because I know you have to talk about your calendar and some of the big events that are coming up, and some of them will include broader discussions like we're having right now.
Yes, definitely.
So tell us the highlights, the don't miss activities.
The don't miss activity, the first day of 16 days, the 25th, which is Wednesday. We start off with our launch. Of course, it will be virtual. So we're inviting the general public to tune in to the launch. It's at 2:30. It will be on the Government of Belize Press Office live stream on the Government of Belize Press Office page and on Love. And so people can tune in and hear more about gender-based violence and all the activities and implementations that we are doing, not only during 16 days, but throughout the year. And so that starts at 2:30 to about 4 o'clock. And again, we want the general public to orange Belize, say no to gender-based violence. A number of our organizations and partners, they are having #OrangeBelize competitions. And so inviting businesses, organizations, and even homes to orange up their place, and they can actually win some cash prizes. So we are trying to find different ways how we can get everybody involved. The National Women's Commission, we are having a video competition on #OrangeBelize for high school students. So we're trying to ensure that every part of the population are included in some of these activities. Again, most are virtual, and every day there is an activity online. So you can check out the National Women's Commission page to see what is happening on that particular day and which social media outlet to join to be a part of the conversations, because all of our organizations are having these conversations for the population that they cater to, and bringing awareness to gender-based violence.
And just as we close, any other activity that you wanted to spotlight? Sorry. Okay. Hi. I think we lost Eleanor there, but let's close off just with a bit of advice or tips to our viewers, things that we can do or change as we move forward to do our part in responding, preventing, collecting, and empowering.
Yes. Again, the response as it relates to it's the services that are in place, and so we want the general public to know that even during the pandemic or during emergencies, these services are still in place. We added the additional smart hotline so that everybody, even if you're not a BTL subscriber or a Digi subscriber, you can then now text or WhatsApp to the police for quick response. So you can use the 672-9628 number to text or WhatsApp your concern, whether you're reporting for you're an advocate, or whether you are the actual victim of gender-based violence. Okay. In terms of prevent, all the different communications and the other trainings that we will be having throughout 16 days online, virtual, for the general public collect. We continue to look at the data that come out from our stakeholders, whether it's the healthcare system, the police, the Ministry of Human Development, and empower. We want to continue to empower our general population, because we really need behavior change if we are to see decreases in the numbers of gender-based violence cases. And so that's what we want to ensure. Everybody, Orange Belize, we want you to orange up your offices, your spaces. We want you to wear orange, not only on the 25th, but also the 2 Fridays within the 16 days and every 25th of the month.
All right. Well, ladies, thank you for getting the conversation started here on the show. The official launch is on Wednesday, and then, of course, we look forward to the subsequent activities for the remainder of this awareness period. Thank you. Stay safe, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and take our final break, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap-up, so stay tuned.
Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service. Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Full-Tech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere, satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Full-Tech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
I'm sure you heard of Smart's new loyalty rewards program, and I'm even more sure you have tons of awards just waiting to be claimed. I'll show you how to access those awards using Smart's web portal. But first, let's sign up for an account at a Smart showroom near you. Now that being out of the way, let's go to the internet and connect. Log in to myaccount.smart-bz.com on your laptop or desktop in the comforts of your home and log in. Enter your number along with the password the customer care gave you, which you can change in the portal, and hit enter. Now you're officially in the portal where you can see your balance and other account details. Let's go to the Smart Loyalty button and see how much stars we have. With these stars, let's hit redeem and start claiming those rewards. We want to click the bundle purchase button, then next, and we can now choose as much rewards as we can with the stars we have. When you're done, just click finish and the rewards will be added to your mobile number immediately. So remember, just by making calls, texting, or using data, you get free rewards points that you can redeem easily using the portal.
Smart, bringing people together.
Welcome back, and we of course want to say thank you for tuning in this morning. We had an update this morning on the flood situation.
From the coordinator, the regional coordinator for NEMO, as well as from the principal hydrologist who joined in afterwards in terms of what we're experiencing across the country with the flood waters and the incessant rains.
Of course. And the Belize Red Cross they've already started their their relief efforts. And if you would like to show your support, you can definitely drop off donations at the Belize Red Cross. You can give them monetary donations. They also have to buy big items like mattresses and bedding and stuff like that. So monetary donations are always welcome. You can go into any bank and ask for the Belize Red Cross account and deposit there. If you're living in a diaspora and you want to help out, you can call them and they may be able to do a transaction through credit cards. And if you want to take physical donations, they're looking for cleaning supplies, they're looking for food. That's the most urgent need at this moment.
Non-perishable foods.
Yeah, non-perishable foods, as most of the people who've been affected by the flood have lost their appliances as well. But it is just a time that we really need to reach out and support one another. So we're grateful for the Red Cross for coordinating this relief effort.
And of course, Wednesday kicks off the 16 days of activism. And so on behalf of the panelists that were discussing with us earlier, we'd like to encourage the members of the public to wear their orange in support of the 16 days to end gender-based violence.
All right. And with that, we are going to go. So remember, if you want to get in touch with us, you can send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also drop me a line at marlene_oye@channel5belize.com. Find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYE Belize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
Start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.